So, excuse my hair. My hair is everywhere right now. So, my husband's always telling me that I, um, I should do a testimony on my life, and I, I am with him. I do believe that I should. So here's going to be a little bit of my testimony. I'll break it up because it's pretty long. I'm 40 years old and 41. Sorry. Um, I've been through a lot of my life, and um, so it's definitely a long testimony. Um, when I was 3, my my mother passed away, and I went to live with my grandparents, and we were Catholic. So I grew up in a Catholic home. I went to church, CCD, anytime the church doors were open, it was like my grandmother was there. So I learned about like praying to Mary and doing like 10 Our Fathers and 3 Hail Marys to wash away your sins, and go and talk to a priest on confessions and stuff like that. So I I grew up like that. Now, I moved in with my dad when I was 13 and moved a couple of states away with him. I was in New Jersey, and then I moved to Connecticut. And that's where I got introduced to the occult. I moved in when I was 13, and that was pretty much it. That's when I got into the occult. I started smoking weed. I started smoking cigarettes. I got into all the bad stuff. I was a good kid when I was in school up until that point. Then I started skipping, hanging out with the wrong crowd, not caring. There was abuse, verbally, you know, mentally, physically. There was abuse in the home. Um, so yeah, like that was rough to deal with. And so I kind of ran away when I was 16 and lived on my own. I stayed with a few friends, but then your your welcome gets, worn out after so long because you're not their child, and they get tired of having to be responsible for someone who's not theirs. So I I would say I was about 17 when I started living on the streets. Slept in abandoned houses, in abandoned cars. I I even, because Connecticut gets cold, of course, in the winter, I even was sleeping on the floor of the post office that was in the town that I lived in, because that area where the mailboxes was is always open, and there was a bathroom in there. So I would curl up on the floor and go to sleep in there because I was too young to live in the shelters. When I turned 18, I joined a carnival. It's where I met my my first baby's father. Um, he was into the same stuff that I was. He was Wiccan. He smoked weed. He drank. We did all of that stuff together. That's when that's when the first abusive relationship happened. That was when I stepped into that very first abusive relationship. I also got like really into the occult with him. Um, we would be sitting in our room because we lived on a train with the carnival that we traveled with. And we had a room on the train, and he would astral project. And when he was astral projected, some just really demonic figure came out and took over his body, like literally every time he did this. And that's when the abuse happened. Um, then it got to where it wasn't when he was astral projecting. Um, he turned pretty abusive then too. So long story short, we broke up. I took the baby. We we stopped seeing each other, and I ended up, because of how stupid I was and immature and selfish, I lost my son to DCF. Um, and that's my biggest regret in life, is not not cleaning up for him. Um, God gave me another chance, and I did. Um, he gave me my second child, and so I had him. I stopped doing what I was doing for a while, went into rehab, moved back up to Connecticut because I was in Florida at that point, moved back up to Connecticut and lived my cultic life. um, Ended up not having anywhere to live, and then sent my son to his dad in Florida, and then joined the carnival. And I was going to meet up with them in Florida, so that way I could get a place and we could all kind of live in the same area, and and like, and just raise my middle or my second oldest son together. Like, not be together, but like at least be in a close proximity to where he could be with both of us. um God had other plans, apparently. I didn't believe him at that point, but he had other plans. I ended up in South Carolina, and that's where I met my third son's father. So me and him had a child. He was abusive and on drugs. I was stupid, on drugs, doing pills, drinking still. Um, of course, I stopped when I was pregnant. I didn't do anything while I was pregnant, but when I got, like, when I had the baby and everything, that's when I would start my stuff over again. I just never found it fair to do the drugs while I was pregnant, which is, it, it was smart, but then it was stupid at the same time because I would go back. So I was still with him. So I, he was abusive too. So I left him when my third child was about 1 year old, and I lived with some really good friends of mine. They would always talk to me about God and stuff like that. I've always had encounters with people talking to me about God and just never really believed in Him. I was respectful enough to stay there and listen to the preaching, but I didn't believe in Him. And so there was one time that I got into this wreck and I smacked my face into a steering wheel. And when we landed on a tree stump. And I was driving, and it was on the driver's side, and the car, it almost crushed me. And everybody was like, "God spared you. You need to turn your life over to Him." And I was like, that was just dumb luck. Like, I didn't believe that in any way that it was God. I know now that it was, but I didn't then. Um, so years went by, and I got my I got um my second oldest from his dad. Me and him and my my third child were all living together. I met I met my ex-husband, um and everything was good. You know, like that whole honeymoon stage where everything's all lovey-dovey and beautiful, and you fall in love, and then the abuse starts. And I will tell you, 2.5 years of that 3.5 year relationship was hell. Uh, we weren't married a year. He only married me so that way he felt like he had rights to my youngest son, because I had my fourth child with him. And that was like the most traumatic. It was the worst marriage, relationship, anything that I've ever been in my whole life. Um, the day that I went to leave him, like I had started kind of, his niece would always preach to me and talk about God to me and stuff like that. So it was like he was using her to draw me in. And the more I got curious and the more I wanted to know him and start turning my life to him, the more abusive and restraining the marriage got. So I was going to work one day and I was going to leave my youngest with a babysitter, and so that way I could come back and I could have a chat with him and see about working everything out with him. And when I was getting into the car to go to work, because I was on my way to work, and then when I got back, I was going to try to reconcile our differences and try to work things out, of course, stupidly. When I was getting in the car, I heard a voice in my head tell me to leave and never come back. And I never returned back to that house. I left all my stuff, all my son's stuff. I didn't go back. I was finished. And so I went into a shelter, which is that I'll tell more on that kind of life. My my life has been in and out of shelters and living with people. And there's a lot that I glossed over because I didn't want this to be like really long. Like I said, it's a long, man, it would take me hours to tell you everything. um, so when I heard that voice, I did leave and I never went back. I was obedient to it. I knew that it was God. I knew that He was telling me that if I went back there, I would not be alive today. I knew that He was saving me. And so I left. Then I went to a shelter, and then I moved in with my friend, and that's when I met my husband that I'm with now. And there has been a lot of trials and tribulations, of course. I, coming out of the occult and coming to Christ and being a babe in the religion, being a babe in my in my relationship with Christ, it made me believe that I was not worthy of forgiveness. I had done spells and witchcraft and said GD, and I have always been respectful of other people's religions. I always believed that you should be respectful of people's religions and stuff like that. Um, but I didn't believe in Him. I always said I didn't believe in Jesus. I believe in a God and a goddess. Like, I believe that there's a God, but I also believe that there's a goddess, because how can a man make everything so beautiful? Like, that just doesn't seem like a manly thing. There's got to be a woman up there somewhere. So that was just me. I believed in all sorts of different gods. So I I was definitely fooled. Witchcraft, Wiccanism, paganism, shamanism, all of that. It's literally darkness wrapped up with pretty bows and feel good sayings and all that nice, fluffy, pretty stuff. It is all of that literally wrapped up to make you feel good about doing it, when on all actualities, God tells us we should not be a part of no sorcery, no witchcraft. And that is definitely a tactic of the devil, to sit there and like misconstrue everything, make us think that we're doing something that's not that bad. Jesus says, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, and nobody gets to the Father except through me. So to sit there and, for me, to think that I was going to make it to heaven anyway because I wasn't a bad person and only bad people go to hell, I was so mistaken. Like, the devil had the wool over my eyes. So I didn't think that I was savable. Then my husband, one night, he was watching this like this podcast with Isaiah Saldivar and John Ramirez. And John Ramirez is an ex-Satanist. And he told his story, and when he was telling his story and how Jesus saved him in hell and brought him out of that darkness and brought him into the light, I was sitting against the wall. Like, there was a wall and a window behind me, and I felt my head jerk back because it was like there was just this plug. I was getting unplugged from like a stronghold that I was led to believe I wasn't worthy of God's love. I wasn't worthy of Jesus to forgive me. I wasn't worthy of him dying for me because of all the crazy stuff that I did. I did some crazy stuff. When I tell you, oh my goodness, it was a wild ride. There was a lot of stuff that I don't even remember that I did, that I know that I did, but it's on people's accounts of telling me what I did, because I don't remember it. I'd be drunk, I'd be high, like, uh, it's such a wild ride. And I thank God for saving me. I am sober. I don't smoke cigarettes. I don't drink. I don't do any drugs. I don't do anything anymore. I never thought that this day would come. I always used to say I would smoke weed until the day that I die. And here I am, happy and living my life without it. And I'm grateful for that, because there was a point in my life that I never thought that I would be able to sit there and function daily without it. I left with nothing, and now I have everything. The Lord has truly blessed my life. My boys, my husband. Of course, we go through spiritual warfare. That is a given. I will never sit there and say that there's no bad that comes along with the good. That would be me lying, and I am not about to lie. I go through spiritual warfare. I have been going through spiritual warfare because I I started helping out at a women's shelter with like Bible studies and stuff like that, like the Lord's led me to do. And ever since I said yes, I have been attacked left and right. My finances, my sanity. But God has held me. He never said that we wouldn't be going through trials and tribulations. He said that we would go through them, but he would be with us. It is in Isaiah. Is Isaiah. Hold on. We're never alone. I think it is Isaiah. 43:2. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not burn, nor shall the flames scorch you. So he never says we're not going to go through stuff. He is going to be with us. Even in Psalm, where it talks about walking through the valley of the shadow of death, we walk through it. We don't stay in it. We walk through it, and he's with us while we walk through it. So that is just a a short cut version of my testimony. If you want to know anything, if you have any questions, anything, you can drop a comment. I'm an open book. Literally, I will tell you anything you want to know. I'll get into more of my testimony and stuff like that. Um, as time goes by, there's a lot to go over and to talk about. I've been homeless. I have been on drugs. I have lost my children to DSS and gotten them back, which is Department of Social Services. I have done some crazy stuff. So yeah, if God can take someone like me and turn me around to where my testimony helps people, I am so glad to be used and so grateful for him to use me in that kind of way. So I will see you guys soon. I love y'all. Have a good day.